If you're like most people, there are parts of your life that feel stuck. You keep getting into the same arguments, you keep feeling the same frustrating emotions, you keep getting the same results. And it's confusing because you're doing the inner work. You're thinking differently, you're showing up differently, but life keeps handing you the same experiences over and over again. But imagine waking up and feeling calm, clear, in control of your reactions. Imagine people responding to you and having things flow almost magically. See, most people don't experience that reality, not because they can't, but because no one ever taught them that reality isn't testing you, it's reflecting you. And today I'm going to explain one of the most powerful concepts in personal growth. It's called the mirror principle. And by the end of this episode, you're going to understand why certain situations and circumstances in your life keep repeating, why reality doesn't immediately shift even when you shift your thinking, and what you need to do to get your internal shifts to actually materialize into a permanently changed reality. Welcome to A Changed Mind. Guys, for so long, I thought that reality was judging me, it was punishing me, it was ignoring me, sometimes it was rewarding me. But the truth is that reality isn't testing you, it's reflecting you. Reality is a feedback loop of consciousness. It is 100% true that you create your own reality, that what you believe becomes real. If you believe that money is scarce, you will experience financial insecurity, 100% guaranteed. You believe you are worthy, then abundance and relationships will become very easy for you. If you believe you have to work really hard to be successful, you'll achieve success. But man, will it be hard. As the Buddha said, the mind is everything. What you think, you become. And I want you to think about how brilliant this system actually is. This idea that we create our own reality. Because it is a way that you can use the experiences of your life to grow and to change and to evolve. Because the world that you experience every day is not actually an experience of the world, it's an experience of yourself. In Scripture, it says that man is made in the image of God, or the Creator. And if everything is God, and we believe that there was a moment when everything started, right? In science, we call it the Big Bang. Then what we can assume is that in the beginning, God wanted to know more of himself. You think about it. If you're God and you're all that is, and you're sitting in the middle of a void, there's nothing to reflect back to you who you are, what you are. And inherent in each and every one of us is this desire to know more of ourselves, this desire to grow, to expand, to have adventure. So if that's inside of us, we can assume it's also inside of God. And so then we can assume that in that moment in the beginning, God wanted to know more of himself, and boom, there was this moment. And over the last 13 billion years, God has come to know himself by what he or she has created in reality. So God knows himself through the evidence of what he has created. And if we're made in the image of God, then it must also be true that we come to know ourselves through the reality that we create. So this is a holographic generational type of experience from father to child, from God to us. Your life is a reflection of who you have been up until this point. Now, the good news is that you can change this, but your current reality is a reflection of who you have been. So who are you? Well, you are the sum total of what you think, what you believe, what you feel, which is a frequency that you put out into reality, and reality mirrors this back to you through your personal reality. Dr. Joe Dispenza says, your personality, meaning who you are, becomes your personal reality. So most people think their reality is causing them to feel a certain way, right? My bank account is causing me to feel financially insecure. This person or this situation is causing me to feel angry. But when you think about it, if everything we're saying is true, which it is, mirrors don't cause anything. They only reflect back what is already happening inside of you. And this is where your ability to influence reality comes. When you realize that reality is a mirror and you take responsibility for what you've created, you can change your reality. I love the word responsibility because if you break that down, it's a response ability. if you don't like what you see in the mirror, you have a response ability, and that is also a responsibility. You say, you know what? I know that what I'm experiencing is just a byproduct of what is inside of me. If I want to change the experience, I have to change myself. Because if you change your thinking, then you can change what gets reflected back to you. You know, this podcast I've been doing for about 2 years. And for the first, 9 months, I recorded an episode every single week. Not that many people listened, right? Had about 5,000 listeners on a monthly basis to this show. Now we're at about 1.3 million a month. What that reflected back to me, this experience, I noticed that I was thinking that I was doing it wrong. Man, look at all these other people with these big shows and big viewership. And, here I am consistently recording every single week for 9 months. Eventually I moved to 2 episodes a week, but I'm not growing. I must be doing it wrong. But that reaction that I had to my podcast performance, that's a belief that I've had since I was a kid. Ever since I was a kid, I believed there was something wrong with me. That is what I got reflected back to me when I was single for 10 years before I met my wife, Carol. I was going out on all of these dates. I wasn't finding anybody. I thought I'd be alone for the rest of my life. The conclusion I had was there's something wrong with me, right? It reflected in my body and my health challenges. I've shared before, in 2017, I was diagnosed with super high levels of mercury in my system from an all-fish diet. Then I went through this crazy 7 years of chronic health challenges. What was my reaction to my physical experience in my body and my health? There's something wrong with me. Everywhere I went, there David Bear was. But when I identified and I shifted this belief, when I used the tools that I teach on this show and I went back and looked at where I learned this and I realized it was never true in the first place, I shifted the belief. What happened? My whole life changed. I met my wife. My health got better. My podcast took off. Because those areas of my life were just reflecting back to me what it was inside of me that I was holding to be true about myself. So when we take responsibility for our reality, recognizing it's just a mirror, and we begin to do the work and we shift our beliefs, I want to explain why sometimes it feels like nothing is changing externally even when we've done the inner work. So it's very important to understand, I like to frame it this way, there are 2 realities happening simultaneously. So the moment you shift a belief, a limiting belief, you're still living in the reality that was produced by your old thinking. And that will sustain itself for a little while. People, oftentimes they change their thinking and then they go, why isn't my reality responding? Well, because there's a delay. And that's a good thing, because you can imagine if we instantly manifested anything, there's a lot of negative thinking we have. We'd be creating a lot of chaos in the world. The other important thing to understand is what we're talking about is a neurological shift. As you start to change your beliefs, you're deactivating old networks in your brain and you're activating new ones. And that takes a little bit of time. So it takes a little bit of time for your reality to change too. And what happens is as you decide that life doesn't have to be hard or money isn't scarce or that there's nothing wrong with you, you're still going to experience for a little while evidence of your old thinking. And the mistake most people make is that they buy into their current reality rather than, as Neville Goddard, the great mystical teacher, would say, staying loyal to the new belief. What's happening is what I call the echo effect. It's important that you understand this, because if you don't understand this, you'll go, well, see, this shift in my thinking didn't actually change my reality. My reality is fixed. It's not a reflection. And you'll go back into your old limiting beliefs. So reality will continue to reflect your old state until the new thinking, the new feeling, the new nervous system, or the new vibration becomes stable. So you have to stay faithful to the new belief in order to create the sustainable change. Hey, it's David. Quick announcement before we get back to your episode. Our annual event, the Powerful Living Experience, is coming up. There's a link in the show notes, or you can visit powerfullivingexperience.com. Check out the video of last year's event. We're going to be bringing together 1,000 impact-driven entrepreneurs, leaders, and game changers to spend 3 days doing what matters most. going really, really deep on identifying the limiting beliefs and subconscious programs that are still preventing you from your full potential, and going through deep experientials and trainings and transforming them. We're also going to be getting into concepts like wealth creation, purpose, greatness, money, relationships, health. And if you're an entrepreneur, we're going to be spending about 20% of that event opening up my business playbook, the same strategies and tactics and techniques that we use to go from $0 to $30 million in an impact-driven business, while spending 90% of my time doing what I love. There's nothing like the Powerful Living Experience. Inc. named it a top 3 must-attend personal development event for entrepreneurs and leaders, and I want to see you there. We've got some discounted tickets right now, plus some additional bonuses. Again, all the information is in the link in the show notes, or you can jump on over to powerfullivingexperience.com, get registered, and I will plan on seeing you there along with 1,000 other impact-driven, incredible members of our community for 3 days that you will never forget. And now, back to your regularly scheduled episode. What we experienced as a child, right? Trauma, our limiting beliefs, the things that happen to us that we would not wish upon other people, but that happen to us, are all part of our unique growth journey, right? So a child with a core belief of I'm not safe will see life reflect that back to them as abandonment, for example. Or a child who adopts this program that there's something wrong with them will, like I did, experience sickness as an adult. And everyone is on their own assigned or chosen journey of evolution. I believe that we all decided to come here to learn something different. And in order to learn that thing that we came here to learn, the expansive part of it, the growth part of it, the evolutionary part of it, we were born into an environment where just the opposite occurs. It's resistance training. And not only does this happen in this life, but it happens from life after life after life after life. So you can see very easily in this life, you've had this journey of experiencing something that you don't like, but that has helped you catalyze and crystallize what it is that you want. So the challenges and the problems in our life are actually the seeds for the desires and the goals and the dreams and the expansion. And that happens not only in this life, but it happens from life after life after life after life, as your soul goes through all the different incarnations in a process of returning to the wholeness or returning to God or all that is. So we are in this process of expansion, contraction, expansion, contraction, expansion, contraction. That's how creation works. That's how you become more vast. You even look at the process a woman goes through in this miracle of birth: contraction, expansion, contraction, expansion, right? Problem, desire, problem, desire, problem, desire. And then boom, a miracle occurs. So you are a miracle maker. And the traumas and challenges you experienced aren't here to hold you back. They're here to catalyze your momentum forward. But you have to understand that reality is a mirror, and it's revealing the programs that are still there so that they can be cleared. This is really powerful because many of us view our trauma or our inefficiencies or insufficiencies or inadequacies as the reason why we can't accomplish something. They're actually the reason why you are here to accomplish and become that thing, because your trauma is the curriculum of your soul. It is not a punishment. How does this change our reality? As we start to take personal responsibility, as we start to look at the mirror and we start to change the inner world and give it time to evolve externally, right? We change our reality. And so we go from what we would call our now moment into the future. But I want you to understand that what we call the future, what we're wanting to arrive to, is actually just a frequency. See, it's important to understand that time is actually a measurement of change. So a day is how long it takes for the earth to change, more specifically, to rotate one time. A year measures the change or the time it takes for the earth to orbit around the sun. A second measures change. The change it measures is 9 billion vibrations of a cesium atom. So time is a measurement of change. And so your present moment will change into the future when your frequency changes. So we experience that change in frequency as what we would call time, but it's really a measurement of vibrational change. And so when your thoughts and your emotions, or what we would call your consciousness, changes or evolves, then the physical mirror or your three-dimensional reality will change to reflect it. So this is important to understand because your future is not something that you move towards. It's something that starts reflecting the moment you match it. So I want to make this practical for you. I want to give you a couple of tools, 3 tools that you can use in relationship to the mirror principle. Number 1, when you are experiencing your reality, and it is a reality that you don't like, ask yourself this question: what am I thinking about this reality or this experience? The reason why that's important is people often say, well, Dave, if I'm creating my reality and I'm creating it through what I believe, how do I become aware of those things that I'm not aware of so I can change the belief? And my answer is pay attention to your reaction to the reality that you don't like. Pay attention to how you react to your problems. Because the thinking that you have in relationship to the problem is not created by the problem. The thinking is actually what created the problem in the first place. You just forgot the time when you started thinking this way. So you become aware of your reaction. The reaction is the belief or the program that created the situation in the first place. And now you can begin to question the thinking. You can work with the belief. You can use all the other tools that I teach on this channel or in my book to change the belief. So this is how you become aware of what's creating your reality. Pay attention to your reaction to it. Number 2, another tool, is what I would call the 1 question method. The question is really simple. This thing that I don't prefer, this problem, this experience, what is this teaching me about myself? If that's a reflection of me, what is this teaching me about me? And if I'm having a challenge with someone or I've been betrayed, what this might be teaching me about me is that I don't trust people. And therefore, life is reflecting that back to me. Right? Everything is a teaching and a learning because it's encouraging you into self-reflection and personal growth in your return to wholeness. It's designed by this loving, omniscient, omnipotent, a loving system or structure. So what is this teaching me about myself? 1 more tool, which is what I would call the future mirror. And the question is this: how would the future me interpret this? In other words, if I were already living with all of my goals and my dreams accomplished as a wholly healed human being, how would I interpret this experience? Right? What would this mean for me? So, for example, I have challenges in business all the time. And I ask myself, how would the future me interpret this? And oftentimes, the future me would not be worrying about the thing. And when I start to be my future self now by choosing not to worry about this, my future me would be able to see that this is a teaching, it's a training, that it's part of the process of helping me become who I must become in order to accomplish my vision. I relax, and the irony is it's in that down-regulated state I have proper perception, and I'm able to see solutions around the problems as they show up. How would the future me interpret this? Remember, it's super important. You shift first, then your reality shifts. But you also have to be patient and stay loyal during the shift between realities. Now, over time, as you do this, you start to build your frequency and you become the dominant frequency in your reality. In other words, most of us start out living in someone else's reality. A lot of us describe it as like the powerful people in the world, right? The people who are creating the systems that we live in. Well, they're creating the systems that we live in because up until now, they've had the dominant frequency. But as you start to reclaim sovereignty over your own frequency, other people will start to entrain to it. I've talked about this in other episodes. They can take a bunch of different grandfather clocks, and the pendulums will all be swinging at a different cadence, but given enough time, they will all entrain to the dominant grandfather clock. We see this biologically with women. Women live together in dorm rooms or houses or whatever it is. Their menstruation cycles all start to entrain to each other. Over time, as you build your new frequency, others will entrain to you. It literally, you start to expand your reality and others become a part of it. It's like a force field that broadcasts influence and protects you from external influence, right? This is energetic mastery. This is how you become untouchable, unshakable, the strongest signal in any room, and ultimately a sovereign creator. So I hope you love this episode as much as I love sharing it with you. And if you want to go deeper with me, we've got 3 days coming up. You can check out the link in the show notes or go to powerfullivingexperience.com. 3 days to get in a room with 1,000 other entrepreneurs, high performers, visionaries, and leaders to master the energetics of everything that we're talking about here so that you can create your own reality, and together we can actually create a new world. So if you're interested in joining us, check out the link in the show notes. and hop on over to powerfullivingexperience.com and grab your ticket to our upcoming event. I love you so much. Thank you for allowing me to be here with you. If you have questions or comments, drop them into the comments below. If you're following along on YouTube, subscribe if you have not yet. Share this episode with somebody who needs to hear it. And if you're listening on the audio platform, same thing. Subscribe, leave me a rating and review, and I will see you in the next episode.